The chamber was filled with laughter. It's not human laughter, but the cruel, sharp sound of alien voices that cut through the air like blades. Their eyes glowed in the dim light, strange and mocking, as if the sight before them was the funniest thing they had ever seen. A young woman stood in the center of the room. Her clothes were torn, her face stained with dirt, and her body shook as tears rolled down her cheeks. Her name was Alara. She was the last survivor of her ship, dragged into the heart of an alien fortress that pulsed with shadows and iron walls. They circled her like predators, their scales shining faintly under the pale lights. Some had long arms with claws. Others wore armor made of living bone. Their voices blended together, sharp hisses mixed with cruel laughter. She cries. One of them sneered in a language Alara barely understood. Soft, weak, just like all humans. Her tears fell harder, dripping down to the metallic floor. To them, those tears were proof of weakness, proof that humans were nothing but fragile creatures. And so they laughed louder. But they didn't. See what lay behind her tears. Not yet. Alara's hands trembled, not only from fear, but from something deeper, something that burned inside her chest. A storm, rage that had been building ever since she had watched her friends die in fire. Since her ship was torn apart, since these aliens had mocked every human life lost as if it was nothing but dust, her tears were not weakness. They were fuel. But the aliens, blind to what was growing, pressed closer. One stepped forward, towering above her. His jaw split open to reveal rows of jagged teeth. He raised a clawed hand and pressed it against her cheek, smearing away a tear, as if it was nothing. Fragile water, he hissed. No fight. No fire, just water. The others howled with laughter again, echoing off the walls. Alara lowered her head, her fists clenching so tight her nails dug into her skin. For a moment, she seemed small, broken, swallowed by despair. But behind her lowered eyes, her mind was alive with fire. She remembered Earth. She remembered the voices of her crew. She remembered her promise never to let humanity be treated as prey. A shiver ran through the aliens closest to her. They could not explain it. They didn't understand why the air felt heavier, why the room grew tense. One by one, the laughter started to falter. Something was wrong. Alara slowly raised her head. Her tears still shone under the pale lights, but now her eyes burned with something far stronger. Not grief, not weakness, but rage, pure, unstoppable rage. The alien who touched her froze, his claws still at her cheek. In her gaze, he did not see prey. He saw a predator waking up. "You think I'm weak," Alara whispered, her voice shaking but steady enough to cut through the silence. "You think my tears mean surrender?" She stepped forward, her chains rattling against the floor. "But my tears are not for me. They're for every human you've killed. They're for the fire you've started, and you will learn that humans don't cry because we're weak. We cry because we remember. When we remember," her voice broke into a sharp whisper, "we burn." The laughter stopped. The chamber grew silent. Every alien's gaze locked on her no longer. Mocking, but wary. Some shifted back without realizing, their instincts screaming danger because they saw it now. Behind her tears was something they had never expected, something they had never seen in their long history of conquest. The spark of human rage. And it was only the beginning. Alara straightened, her chains shaking as if they could barely hold her. Her rage pulsed like a living force, echoing across the room. The aliens, once so certain of their victory, now found themselves stepping back, their mocking smiles fading into unease. One of them hissed nervously, "Impossible. She is only one." But deep inside, they already knew the truth. One human with rage was never alone. Rage carried memory, carried voices, carried the strength of all who had fallen. Alara closed her eyes for a moment. She could still hear them, her crew, her friends, her people. Their voices whispered like a storm inside her mind, pushing her forward. She opened her eyes again, and this time the chamber shook with the silence of fear. Her chains would break. The fortress would fall. The galaxy would remember the day they mocked human tears until they saw the fire behind them. The aliens did not laugh anymore. They watched, silent and afraid, as the storm inside one human girl began to rise. And Ilara knew in her heart that this was only the first step. The war of memory had just begun. The silence in the alien chamber grew heavy. The laughter was gone, replaced by unease. The chains around Ilara rattled softly as she moved, but the sound carried like thunder in the quiet hall. The alien who had mocked her stepped back, sharp teeth no longer bared in victory. His clawed hand twitched as if he wanted to strike her again, but something inside him held back. He had seen her eyes. He had seen the fire rising behind those tears. The leader of the group, a tall creature with black armor fused into his flesh, stepped forward. His voice was colder, deeper than the others. "Human," he growled, "you dare show fire before your end." Ilara met his stare, unflinching. Her body trembled, but not from fear. Every breath she took only fed the storm inside her. "You think this is my end?" she asked quietly. "Oh, this is the beginning." The alien leader tilted his head, studying her like a puzzle he couldn't solve. The others hissed, restless. Some wanted to strike, others wanted to step back. Confusion spread among them like cracks in a wall. Ilara lifted her hands, chains pulling tight. She tugged once, and the metal groaned. The aliens froze. Human strength should not have been enough to move those chains, but her rage pushed her, body beyond its limit. The leader narrowed his glowing eyes. "You are nothing. A broken survivor. A tearful child. Do not think your anger makes you more." Ilara's lips curved, not in a smile, but in defiance. "It makes me human." For a heartbeat, the entire room went still. The word human struck them differently. They had fought humans before. They had won battles. They had burned colonies. But this was not the voice of prey. This was the voice of something unbroken, something they could not crush. Then came the sound, metal straining, screaming under pressure. The chains cracked. One alien hissed in disbelief. Impossible. With a final pull, Ilara tore one chain free from the wall. The sound of it snapping echoed like a gunshot. Sparks fell to the ground. She stood taller now, one arm free, her rage burning like a beacon in the dark chamber. The aliens stepped back at once. For the first time, fear shone in their eyes. Ilara raised the broken chain, the jagged edge gleaming under the pale light. "You wanted weakness," she said, her voice steady. "You wanted prey. But what you'll get is war." The leader snarled, trying to recover his authority. "Kill her!" The command snapped the tension. Several aliens rushed forward, claws out, teeth bared. Ilara moved before they could reach her. With speed born not from training but from fury, she swung the chain. The jagged metal cut across one alien's throat. Dark blood sprayed the floor. The creature collapsed, gasping, its laughter forever silenced. The others hesitated. They had never expected a prisoner to fight back, never. Expected tears to turn into blades. But Ilara did not hesitate. Her movements were wild, desperate, but filled with a force they couldn't match. She struck another, breaking his arm with a crack of bone. She ducked under claws and drove the sharp chain into a scaled chest. The chamber became chaos. Hisses turned into screams. Fear replaced laughter. The leader roared, stepping forward with his blade-like arm raised. Ilara faced him head-on, rage pushing her beyond exhaustion. Their weapons clashed, chain against living blade, and sparks filled the room. The impact threw her back. But she did not fall. She landed hard, her chest burning, but her eyes stayed locked on him. The leader snarled, but inside he felt something. New doubt. He had fought warriors from many worlds, but never had he seen one rise from chains with fire in her tears. Ilara wiped the blood from her cheek. "You don't understand us," she said through heavy breaths. "You think humans break. But when you push us to the edge, we don't fall, we fight." The aliens around them shifted uneasily. For the first time, some looked at their leader not with loyalty, but with hesitation. The air was thick with fear and something else, something they didn't want to admit. Respect, the leader roared again, louder, trying to bury it. She is. Only one. Lara lifted the chain once more, her voice like steel. One is enough. And in that moment, every alien in the room understood that something dangerous had awakened, something they could not crush with claws or chains. Because behind her tears, the fire of all humanity had begun to burn, and it would spread. The chamber floor was painted with blood. The alien bodies lay twisted, their laughter silenced forever. Smoke rose from the broken lights above, casting strange shadows across the walls. Ilara stood in the center, her breath sharp, her body trembling from exhaustion. One arm still hung heavy in chains, the other held the jagged metal she had torn free. Her eyes glowed with rage, unbroken, unyielding. Around her, the surviving aliens had pulled back, their mocking voices gone. They were not laughing now. Watched her like cornered beasts, fear mixing with disbelief. No human prisoner was supposed to rise like this. No human was supposed to fight with such fury. Yet here she was, one girl standing against them, bleeding, but unbroken. The leader hissed, his voice low with anger and something deeper fear. "You are a spark," he said. "But sparks die in darkness." Ilara stared at him, her chest rising and falling with every breath. Her voice was hoarse, but steady. "And I'll burn the darkness itself." He lunged. His blade-like arms slashed through the air, aiming for her heart. Ilara rolled aside, her movements raw but fast. The strike tore into the wall, sparks flying. Where metal met, metal she rose, swinging the broken chain. The jagged edge tore across his armor, leaving a deep gash. The leader staggered back, shock flashing across his glowing eyes. The others hissed in alarm. Their leader had been wounded by a human. Ilara didn't stop. Her rage carried her forward. She struck again, each blow filled with the memory of her crew. Screams of the dying, the laughter of these monsters, every tear she had. Shed now fueled her arm. The leader roared, blocking her strikes with his living blade. Their fight shook the chamber, sparks lighting the shadows. He was stronger, faster, built for war. But Ilara carried something he could never understand. Her rage turned weakness into strength. Her pain became her weapon. The leader slashed across her arm, drawing blood. Ilara staggered, nearly falling. The aliens hissed with excitement, thinking it was over. But she didn't fall. She gritted her teeth, her eyes blazing, and struck back harder. The chain tore into his side, cutting deep. Black blood splattered. The floor. The leader roared in pain, stumbling backward. The aliens froze. Their leader wounded again. Ilara's voice cut through the silence. "You call us weak, but you don't understand. Every time you cut us, we rise stronger. Every time you try to break us, we learn how to fight back. That is why you will never win." The aliens shifted uneasily, their confidence crumbling. They had seen human soldiers before, but never like this. This was no simple fight. This was something larger. The leader's rage boiled. He lunged again, faster, his blade slashing across her chest. Pain exploded through Ilara's body. She fell to her knees, her breath shallow, blood dripping onto the cold floor. The aliens hissed in victory. The leader raised his arm for the final strike, but Ilara lifted her head. Her tears fell again, mixing with blood. Her lips whispered words that carried across the silent chamber. "These tears are not for me." Her grip tightened on the chain. With one last surge of rage, she pushed herself up, swinging with all the strength left in her body. The jagged edge struck the leader's neck. There was a sickening crack. His eyes widened in shock. He staggered, choking, black blood pouring from the wound. The chamber fell into stunned silence. The leader, the one they had followed, the one they had trusted, collapsed. At her feet, dead, the surviving aliens hissed in terror, backing away from her. For the first time in their lives, they saw something they could not conquer. A human, covered in blood and tears, standing above their strongest warrior. Ilara dropped the chain, her chest heaving. Her body was broken, her vision blurred, but her spirit burned brighter than ever. She raised her head and met the gaze of every alien in the room. "Remember this?" she said, her voice sharp as a blade. You laughed at my tears, but now you know the truth. Behind every human tear, there is fire. The aliens shivered. Some turned and fled. Others bowed their heads, unable to meet her burning gaze. Ilara's knees weakened, but she refused to fall. She had no ship, no allies, no escape. But she had something greater: fear planted deep in the hearts of her enemies, and she knew this was only the start. If one human could strike fear into them, what would happen when the rest of humanity rose? Lara closed her eyes, whispering to herself, I am not the last. I am only the first. And somewhere deep in the alien fortress, alarms began to wail. Reinforcements were coming. The war she had just begun was about to spread. The alarms echoed through the fortress, loud and sharp, shaking the very walls. Red lights flashed overhead, painting the chamber in a bloody glow. The surviving aliens hissed nervously, some fleeing through the side doors, others frozen in fear. Ilara stood over the fallen leader, her body shaking from exhaustion and blood loss. Every breath burned in her lungs. Her arm hung heavy, her chest ached where claws had cut deep. But her eyes still burned with fire. She knew more were coming. The fortress was alive with movement. The sound of metal boots thundered through the halls. Ilara bent down, her fingers closing around the weapon the leader had dropped. A jagged blade fused with strange bone. It felt heavy in her hands, but strong. She tightened her grip, knowing she would need it. The first wave of reinforcements stormed into the chamber. Dozens of armored aliens, their weapons glowing with energy. They stopped at the sight before them, their leader dead, their soldiers scattered, and one human standing alone in blood. For a moment, there was silence. Then, rage filled the air. Kill her. One of them roared. They charged. Ilara steadied herself, blood dripping from her wounds. Her legs trembled, but she stood firm. She had no choice. If she fell here, humanity's flame would die with her. The first soldier swung his weapon. Ilara ducked, the blade whistling past her head. She thrust her own jagged weapon forward, piercing his chest. Black blood splattered her face. She pulled free and spun, catching another soldier across the neck. Her body screamed in pain, but rage pushed her forward. She was no trained warrior, but she fought with desperation, with memory, with fire. Every strike carried the weight of her fallen crew. Every cut was vengeance. The aliens had numbers. They had armor. They had weapons far beyond hers. They also had fear. They saw her rise from chains. They saw her kill their leader, and fear slowed their hands. Fear weakened their strikes. Ilara fought like a storm. She fell one, then another, her blade tearing through armor and flesh. The chamber shook with roars and screams, but the numbers pressed harder. A soldier struck her across the back, sending her crashing to the floor. Pain exploded through her body. She gasped, blood spilling from her mouth. The soldier raised his weapon to finish her, and then something strange happened. The alien hesitated. His eyes locked with hers. For a moment, he saw not prey, but something terrifying. He saw a human who refused to break. His arm trembled. His weapon did not fall. Layla seized the moment. She rolled, her blade cutting through his leg. He screamed and collapsed. She rose again, her fire burning hotter, her body refusing to quit. The other aliens faltered. Their charge slowed. Whispers spread among them. Fear turned to doubt. Impossible. One hissed. She is only one. But they had said that before, and she still stood. Ilara's voice cut through their whispers. One is enough. Can start a fire, and fire spreads. Her words echoed across the chamber. Even the walls seemed to tremble with them. The aliens froze. For the first time in their history of conquest, they hesitated before a single human. And then in the distance, a new sound rose. Not alien alarms, not boots. Something else. A human voice. Ilara's heart skipped. She turned toward the broken hall. Through the smoke she saw a figure, armor scorched, face bloodied, but alive. A human soldier. Her eyes widened. She was not alone. The soldier raised a rifle, firing into the aliens. Bright energy bolts lit the chamber, cutting down 2 in an instant. The aliens shrieked in rage and fear. Reinforcements poured into the room, but now they faced not just Alara, but another human. The soldier rushed to her side, covering her as more fire rained down. "You're still alive," he said, his voice rough with disbelief. Alara gripped her blade tighter, blood running down her arm. "Humans don't die easy." The soldier gave her a quick nod. "Then let's make them remember that." Together, they faced the swarm of aliens. Alone, Alara had been a storm. But now, with another human at her side, she was more. And the fire of humanity began to spread. The aliens, once laughing at her tears, now saw something terrifying. Not weakness, not prey. They saw the beginning of a war. Smoke filled the chamber, thick and choking. Alien bodies lay scattered across the floor, their black blood dripping into dark pools. The alarm still screamed, but now another sound mixed with them rifle fire. Alara stood beside the soldier who had found her. His name was Darius. His armor was scorched, one shoulder bent where a claw had torn through. But his rifle burned bright with every shot. The aliens were regrouping, flooding the hallways. Their roars echoed like thunder, yet something was different now, they know. Longer rushed with laughter and confidence. They moved with hesitation, their eyes darting toward the 2 humans who refused to fall. Alara tightened her grip on her blade. Her body ached, blood dripped down her side, but she refused to stop. "How did you survive?" she asked between breaths. Darius fired another shot, dropping a soldier. Escape pod. Landed in the ruins below. "I thought I was the only one left." Alara's chest burned, but her voice carried strength. "You're not, and neither am I." Darius glanced at her, and for the first time since his crash, he felt hope. She was bloodied, half broken, but the fire in her eyes was undeniable. The aliens roared, surging again. Dozens filled the chamber, their weapons glowing, their claws ready. The fortress shook with their charge. Alara raised her blade. Darius steadied his rifle, and together they stood. The battle exploded. Blades clashed with claws. Rifle fire cut through armor. The air filled with smoke, sparks, and screams. Alara fought like a storm, her blade carved through flesh, each strike. Fueled by rage, Darius covered her with precise shots, dropping enemies before they could surround her. But the numbers were endless. For every alien they cut down, more poured in. The chamber became a sea of enemies. Ilara's body screamed for rest. Her arms shook, her vision blurred. She staggered, a claw slicing across her leg. She cried out, nearly falling. Darius rushed to her side, firing point blank into the alien's chest. "Stay up," he shouted. "We're not done yet." Lara pushed herself upright, her blade dripping black blood. "Humans don't quit," she growled. The aliens roared louder, anger mixing with fear. Their leader was dead, their soldiers falling, yet these 2 humans refused to break. It was unnatural. It was terrifying. One alien shouted above the chaos, "They are only 2, crush them." Alara's laugh was bitter, sharp. 2 is enough. Words cut deeper than any blade. The aliens faltered, their charge slowing. The image of 2 humans standing bloodied yet unbroken burned into their minds like fire. But then, something else shook the fortress. A deep rumble, sound not of alien weapons, but of engines. Heavy, powerful engines. Alara froze, her eyes widening as Darius turned, hope sparking across his tired face. Through the shattered walls of the fortress, they saw it a human ship, scarred and burning, but alive. It descended like an iron giant, guns blazing, fire cutting through the alien stronghold. Human reinforcements. The fortress walls shook as missiles struck. Towers crumbled. Alien soldiers screamed, scattering in panic. The sky above burned with fire and smoke. Ilara's chest tightened. For the first time since her capture, since the tears and chains, she felt something more powerful than rage. She felt hope. Darius shouted above the chaos, his voice fierce. They came back for us. The aliens shrieked in panic, their lines breaking. Some tried to fight, others fled. The humans' arrival had shattered their certainty. Ilara raised her blade high, her voice carrying above the screams. You thought my tears were weakness. You thought we would fall. But now you'll see what happens when humanity rises together. Her words rang like thunder, and the aliens trembled. Darius grinned despite the blood on his face. Time 2. Show them what humans are made of. Together, they pushed forward, fighting through the chaos, cutting down any alien that dared to stand. The fortress shook with fire from above. Human dropships landed in the distance, soldiers pouring out. Weapons blazing, the tide had turned. Ilara fought with renewed strength, every strike sharper, every step steadier. She was no longer alone. Her rage was now joined with the fire of her people, the aliens. Once laughing at her tears, now faced a storm they could not stop, and deep inside, Ilara knew this was not the end of the fight. This was only the beginning of a war that would spread across the stars, a war that would teach the galaxy a truth they would never forget. Humans may cry, but behind every tear is fire. The fortress shook like it was alive. Explosions thundered through its halls, and the red lights flickered as walls cracked. Alien soldiers screamed in panic as human ships unleashed fire from the sky. Ilara and Darius moved through the chaos, side by side. Her blade dripped black blood, his rifle burned hot, and their steps were heavy but unbroken. They'd fought too long to stop now. The air was thick with smoke, the ground was slick with blood. Yet, through the noise and ruin, Lara felt something she had not felt in what seemed like forever: hope. Everywhere she looked, humans were arriving. Drop pods slammed into the ground, bursting open with soldiers in scorched armor. They charged forward, rifles blazing, voices filled with defiance. The aliens who once laughed now fled. Their lines were broken, their fortress collapsing. They had thought chains and fear would hold humanity, but now they faced something greater: unity. Darius fired into a charging alien, dropping it before it could strike Ilara. Reinforcements are pushing from the east halls, he shouted. Ilara nodded, wiping blood from her face. Her voice was hoarse but strong. Then we push with them. They pressed forward, cutting through the corridors. Every hallway shook with gunfire. Every chamber echoed with battle cries. Humans and aliens clashed in a storm of fire and steel. Ilara moved like a shadow of rage. Her blade cut down enemies without hesitation. She no longer fought only for herself. She fought for every life lost, for every tear shed. Darius covered her back, his shots sharp and precise, keeping her alive through the storm. At last, they broke into a wide hall. Hundreds of humans filled the space, their rifles flashing. Alien soldiers poured in from above, dropping from vents and platforms. The hall became a battlefield, screams mixing with gunfire. In the center stood a massive alien commander, armored in dark steel, taller than any soldier they had faced. His eyes glowed red, and his voice roared over the chaos. You will burn. With your world? He bellowed, raising a massive spear that crackled with energy. The humans faltered, their advance slowing. Fear gripped them. Ilara stepped forward. Her body ached, her blood still dripped, but her fire only grew brighter. She raised her blade high, her voice cutting through the hall. No, you will burn with ours. Her words carried like thunder. Every human lifted their heads. Every soldier straightened. The hall filled with a new sound, battle cries. Loud, fierce, unstoppable, they charged. The aliens roared in response, crashing against the human wave. The hall shook with the clash of armies. Ilara and Darius fought their way toward the towering commander. His spear cut through soldiers like fire through paper, throwing bodies aside with every strike. But still, humans pressed forward. Darius fired shot after shot, sparks bouncing off the commander's armor. He's too strong, he shouted. Ilara's jaw tightened. She could feel it, the fire in her chest, the storm that had carried her this far. She lifted her blade. Then I'll break him. The commander saw her. His lips curled back in a cruel smile. "The human who cries," he hissed. "The one who killed my brother." So the leader she had slain was his kin. Ilara's eyes narrowed. "Then come see what's behind my tears." He roared and lunged, his massive spear slashing down. Ilara rolled aside, the ground splitting where the weapon struck. She rose and charged, her blade cutting across his leg. Sparks flew, black blood spilling. The commander howled in rage. His spear swung wide, knocking her back against a wall. Pain shot through her body, but she forced herself up again. Darius fired, drawing the commander's attention, giving her space. "Go, Ilara. Finish this." She gripped her blade, fire filling her lungs. Her tears blurred her vision, but they no longer felt heavy. They felt like strength. The commander raised his spear for the killing blow. Ilara ran forward, screaming. With all the rage inside her, she ducked under the swing and drove her blade deep into his chest. The hall shook with his roar. He staggered, blood spilling, his glowing eyes wide with shock. Ilara pushed deeper, every ounce of her strength pouring into the strike. "This is for humanity," she cried. The blade tore through his heart. The massive commander collapsed, his spear falling with a thunderous crash. The hall went silent for one breath, then erupted with human cheers. The aliens froze. Their greatest commander had fallen. To the very prisoner they had mocked, their lines broke. Fear consumed them. Ilara pulled her blade free, falling to her knees. Her chest heaved, her vision swam. But she smiled through the blood. She had done it. Darius rushed to her side, pulling her up. "You're still alive?" Ilara's eyes burned with fire. "I told you, humans don't break." The hall thundered. With human victory. And yet, in the silence between explosions, Ilara felt if this was not the end. This was only the first battle. The galaxy had mocked human tears. But now they would learn the truth. Behind those tears was the fire of a species that would never stop. The fortress was burning. Towers crumbled, walls split apart, and fire poured from every level. The ground shook with the weight of destruction. Humans had turned the prison of chains into a battlefield of victory. Their ships rained fire from above, their soldiers filled the halls. And their voices carried a single truth. Humanity had risen. Ilara leaned against Darius as they moved through the ruins. Her blade dripped with black blood, her body bruised and torn, but her eyes never wavered. She had fought too long to stop now. The humans cheered as she passed. Soldiers with scorched armor and bloody faces looked at her not as a survivor, but as something greater. A symbol. A spark that had turned despair into fire. Ilara, Darius said softly as they entered the ruined courtyard.
"Oh,
"They're looking." "At you," she glanced at the soldiers around them. Every gaze burned with respect. He whispered her name like a legend. "I'm not a legend," she said quietly. "I'm just human." "That's exactly why you are," Darius replied. Before she could answer, shadow fell across the courtyard. From the sky, massive alien warships descended. Their engines roared like storms, their hulls glowing with terrible light. The battlefield trembled as their weapons powered up. The soldiers stiffened. Hope flickered into fear. The fortress may have fallen, but the true enemy was not gone. Fleet was here. Darius cursed under his breath. "They're bringing the whole sky against us." Ilara tightened her grip on her blade, though her hands shook. She looked at the ships above, their size blotting out the stars. For a moment, even her fire wavered. How could humans fight against this? The alien ships opened their weapons, light building to fire. The soldiers braced themselves, knowing they had nowhere to run. And then light streaked across the sky. Not alien fire, human fire. From the clouds, a fleet emerged. Human warships, scarred but alive, engines burning bright. Their guns unleashed storms of missiles and beams tearing into the alien vessels. The sky lit up with fire and thunder. The humans below roared in victory. Their fleet had come. Ilara's chest burned with hope. Tears filled her eyes again, but this time they were not for despair. They were for the sight above her, a reminder that humanity always came back. The alien fleet answered with fury. The sky became a storm of fire, ships clashing in deadly waves. Explosions ripped through the air, debris raining down on the battlefield. On the ground, the fight raged on. Alien soldiers poured from the warships, claws and weapons flashing. Humans met them with rifles and blades, the courtyard turning into chaos once more. Darius pulled Alara into cover behind a broken wall. "We can't hold them forever," he said. "Not like this." Alara looked around the soldiers, battered but unbroken, fighting with all they had. Her heart ached, but her fire blazed stronger. "We don't need forever," she whispered. "We just need long enough." She rose, ignoring the pain in her chest, and climbed onto the broken wall. The battlefield stretched before her, smoke and blood mixing with fire. The soldiers looked up at her, waiting, desperate for something to hold on to. Alara raised her blood-stained blade high. Her voice rang across the chaos. "Humans. They thought our tears meant weakness. They thought we would break. But look around you. Look at what we are." Soldiers lifted their rifles, their eyes burning. "They brought chains," she shouted. "We turned them into weapons. They brought fear, turned it into fire. And now they will learn that humanity does not bow." Her words roared like thunder, echoing across the battlefield. Every human soldier shouted in answer, their cries shaking the ruins. The aliens hesitated, their charge slowed, fear spread through their ranks again, for they could feel that the humans were not fighting with numbers or weapons alone. They were fighting with something far stronger, unbreakable will. Darius climbed up beside her, raising his rifle. "You heard her," he shouted. "Make them choke on our fire?" The courtyard exploded with human fury. Rifles blazed, blades cut, grenades roared. The aliens screamed as wave after wave of resistance shattered their lines. Overhead, the human fleet pushed forward, their ships burning through the alien armada. Alara's fire burned hotter than ever. She fought at the front, her blade flashing, her tears falling not for weakness but for strength. Every soldier who saw her felt the same truth: if she could stand, they all could. The battle raged through the night, fire painting the sky, and as dawn's light broke across the ruins, Alara knew this was not the end. The galaxy had seen humans fight. The galaxy had seen what was behind their tears, but the war was far from over. The aliens would come again, stronger, angrier, and when they did, humanity would be ready. The sky was fire. Human and alien warships clashed above the fortress there, guns tearing through clouds, their engines shaking the world. Every blast lit the heavens like thunder, and debris rained down in burning streaks. On the ground, the battlefield was chaos. Humans and aliens clashed in blood and smoke. The ruins of the fortress groaned, its walls collapsing as fire consumed it. Alara fought at the front, her blade dripping black blood. Her body screamed with pain, every breath sharp, but her fire only grew. She had become more than a survivor, more than a prisoner. She was the spark of humanity's rage. Darius fought beside her, his rifle burning hot. He shouted commands, his voice steady, even as the ground shook. Together they led the soldiers through the storm. But then the earth trembled with a sound greater than all the rest. From the alien fleet above, a massive warship descended. Larger than all the others, its shadow swallowed the battlefield. Its hull was jagged steel, its weapons glowing with enough power to erase everything below. The humans froze, even the strongest. Soldiers faltered at the sight. Darius cursed under his breath. "That's their flagship." The warship's weapons powered up, energy building in a blinding glow. One strike would level the battlefield, destroy the humans, and end their hope. For a moment, silence fell, and then Alara stepped forward. Her blade hung heavy in her hand, her body broken, but her voice carried like steel. "They think one ship can break us," she said, "but they don't understand. It's not ships that win wars, it's will." The soldiers turned to her, their eyes wide. She raised her blade high, tears shining on her face, fire burning in her gaze. "They mocked our tears, but behind them is rage. Behind them is fire, and behind them is all of humanity." The soldiers roared, their cries shaking the ruins. Above, the human fleet surged forward, protecting the ground forces. Fighters dove from the sky, missiles streaking toward the alien flagship. The aliens answered with fire, the heavens exploding in chaos. On the ground, the flagship opened its hangars, unleashing waves of elite soldiers. Massive armored beasts with glowing weapons stormed into the courtyard. Elara charged to meet them. Her blade clashed with their armor, sparks flying. She fought with everything left in her, every strike filled with the voices of her fallen crew. Darius covered her, firing into the beasts, his rifle echoing through the ruins. But the beasts were powerful. One struck Elara across the chest, throwing her hard to the ground. Pain exploded through her body. She gasped, her vision blurring. The beast raised its weapon to finish her. Elara's tears fell again. But this time, she did not feel weakness. She felt memory, the faces of her friends, the fire of her people, the strength of every soldier who stood with her now. Her hand tightened on her blade. She rolled, driving it up with a scream. The blade pierced the beast's chest, tearing through its armor. It roared and collapsed beside her. Elara pulled herself up, blood pouring down her side. Her voice cut through the chaos. Humans don't kneel, her words carried across the battlefield. Soldiers rose stronger, their rifles firing harder. They pushed the aliens back, inch by inch, their cries turning fear into fury. Above, the human fleet made its final strike. Bombers dived through. Enemy fire, dropping heavy payloads onto the flagship. Explosions ripped across its hull, tearing it open. The massive ship groaned, fire spilling from its core. The battlefield froze as the alien flagship began to fall. Its engines screamed, its weapons flickered out, and then it crashed into the distant mountains with a thunderous roar. The ground shook, fire rising into the sky. The aliens, still alive on the ground, screamed in terror. Their will shattered, their lines broke. They turned and fled, abandoning the fortress. Humanity had won. Elara fell to her knees, her blade slipping from her hands. Her chest rose and fell in ragged breaths. Around her, soldiers cheered, their voices carrying across the ruins. Darius rushed to her side, catching her before she collapsed. Elara, you did it. She shook her head weakly. No, we did it. Humanity did it. The soldiers gathered around them, lifting their rifles high. Their cheers shook the air, not just victory cries, but something greater, a promise. The galaxy would never forget this day. The day one human, chained and mocked, had risen from tears and turned them into fire. Elara closed her eyes, her lips, whispering, "They thought we were weak, but now they'll see." And as the sun rose over the battlefield, its light spilling across the ruins and the human fleet above, the galaxy itself seemed to hold its breath, because humanity was no longer prey. Humanity was fire,